investigation. Denmark and the entire European Union strongly condemn Russia's unlawful and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. My message is very clear. Putin has got to stop this war and to end the killings. I, of course, hope that India will influence Russia also in this discussion. I now look forward to continuing the discussions between the two of us tomorrow, also with our Nordic colleagues at the Indo-Nordic Summit 2022. And just to finalize, we have a very strong partnership between our two countries, and we are very grateful that you are in Copenhagen this day. Welcome.
Thank you.
Your Excellency,
Prime Minister of Denmark, डेलीगेशन के सदस्यों, मीडिया के मित्रों, गुड इवनिंग एंड नमस्कार। एक्सेलेंसी, प्राइम मिनिस्टर मेरे और मेरे डेलीगेशन के डेनमार्क में शानदार स्वागत और मेजबानी के लिए आपको और आपकी टीम को हार्दिक धन्यवाद। आपके खूबसूरत देश में यह मेरी पहली यात्रा है। पिछले वर्ष अक्टूबर में मुझे आपका भारत में स्वागत करने का अवसर प्राप्त हुआ। इन दोनों यात्राओं से हम अपने संबंधों में निकटता ला पाए हैं और उन्हें गतिशील बना पाए हैं। हमारे दोनों देश लोकतंत्र, अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता और कानून के शासन जैसे मूल्यों को तो साझा करते ही हैं, साथ में हम दोनों की कई कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री स्ट्रेंथ भी हैं। फ्रेंड्स, अक्टूबर 2020 में इंडिया डेनमार्क वर्चुअल समिट के दौरान हमने अपने संबंधों को ग्रीन स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप का दर्जा दिया था। हमारी आज की चर्चा के दौरान हमने अपनी ग्रीन स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के ज्वाइंट वर्क प्लान की समीक्षा की। मुझे खुशी है कि विभिन्न क्षेत्रों में विशेष रूप से रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, स्वास्थ्य, पोर्ट्स, शिपिंग, सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी तथा वाटर मैनेजमेंट के क्षेत्रों में महत्वपूर्ण प्रगति हुई है। 200 से अधिक डेनिश कंपनियां भारत में विभिन्न क्षेत्रों में काम कर रही हैं, जैसे पवन ऊर्जा, शिपिंग, कंसल्टेंसी, फूड प्रोसेसिंग, इंजीनियरिंग, ऐसे कई क्षेत्र हैं। इन्हें भारत में बढ़ते ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस और हमारे व्यापक आर्थिक रिफॉर्म्स का लाभ मिल रहा है। भारत के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टर और ग्रीन इंडस्ट्रीज में डेनिश कंपनीज और डेनिश पेंशन फंड्स के लिए निवेश के लिए बहुत अवसर है। आज हमने भारत ईयू रिश्तों, इंडो पैसिफिक और यूक्रेन सहित कई क्षेत्रीय तथा वैश्विक मुद्दों पर भी बातचीत की। हम आशा करते हैं कि इंडिया ईयू फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट, उस पर नेगोशिएशंस यथाशीघ्र संपन्न होंगे। हमने एक फ्री, ओपन, इंक्लूसिव और रूल बेस्ड इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्रों को सुनिश्चित करने पर जोर दिया। हमने यूक्रेन में तत्काल युद्ध विराम और समस्या के समाधान के लिए बातचीत और कूटनीति का रास्ता अपनाने की अपील की। हमने क्लाइमेट के क्षेत्र में अपने सहयोग पर भी चर्चा की। भारत ग्लासगो COP26 में लिए गए संकल्पों को पूरा करने के लिए भी प्रतिबद्ध है। हम आर्किटेक्ट क्षेत्र में सहयोग के अधिक अवसर तलाशने पर सहमत हुए हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, मुझे विश्वास है कि आपके नेतृत्व में भारत और डेनमार्क के संबंध नई ऊंचाई प्राप्त करेंगे। मैं कल होने वाली सेकंड इंडिया नॉर्डिक समिट की मेजबानी करने के लिए भी आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं और आज भारतीय डायस्पोरा के कार्यक्रम में शामिल होने के लिए भी मैं, क्योंकि आपने वहां आने के लिए समय निकाला, भारतीय समुदाय के प्रति आपका कितना प्यार है इसका ये प्रतीक है और इसके लिए मैं आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं। थैंक यू। Okay.
You have been listening to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi alongside his Danish counterpart Mette Frederiksen in Copenhagen. A busy day of meetings for Narendra Modi, and it's a busy week for him as well. A three-stop European tour. He arrived in Copenhagen after first having visited Berlin, and as I say, has been holding those talks with Danish counterpart Mette Frederiksen in Copenhagen. There is a lot more on the agenda besides multiple bilateral and multilateral engagements, an India-Denmark business roundtable, interactions with the Indian community, a meeting with the Queen of Denmark, and the second edition of the India-Nordic Summit coming up as well. That summit will focus on economic engagement, green partnerships and mobility and cooperation in the Arctic region. So there is lots going on for Narendra Modi, as I say, speaking there alongside his Danish counterpart, and more to come throughout the day and later in the week as well, with Narendra Modi due to visit France as part of the trip as well. We can go now to our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who is in Copenhagen for us. Siddhant, what did you take out of that press appearance there?
Well, yes, if you look at that press statement that was being addressed by both the leaders, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Denmark Prime Minister, Ukraine is something that stood out. Essentially, it was natural that both the leaders will be mentioning about the crisis, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Denmark Prime Minister obviously strongly condemned it. We know the stance of Denmark, while the Indian Prime Minister reiterated the call for cessation of hostilities between the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. But largely, if you look at the key outcomes of the entire meeting that happened here in Copenhagen between the Indian Prime Minister and the Denmark Prime Minister, was on green strategic partnership. The Indian Prime Minister talked about a work plan being decided upon, and we know that Denmark has been playing an important role when it comes to green technology and clean technology. Green technology is something that India will be keen that it gets from Denmark, as the Prime Minister has been saying that India has the scale and Denmark has the scale, and that can help both the countries. But of course, a key component is the diaspora as well. The diaspora has come in full force when it comes to welcoming the Indian Prime Minister, and there you have it. If a camera person can show you some of those Indians waiting to welcome the Indian Prime Minister, where I am standing. I'm standing near the place where the Indian Prime Minister is just shortly going to arrive, and the diaspora diaspora with the Indian flag, waiting to welcome the Indian Prime Minister. So whether it's the bilateral component, the talks which have been just concluded, or the diaspora component, both are very strong, as it was in Berlin yesterday. But one thing that will stand out in Copenhagen, that is going to happen tomorrow, is the India-Nordic Summit, the meeting between the 5 Nordic countries, the Prime Ministers of the 5 Nordic countries and the Indian Prime Minister. And basically that provides a platform for the 5 Nordic countries and India to discuss clean energy, innovation, climate change, and how they can cooperate in the Arctic.
Okay, Siddhant, thank you. That is Siddhant Sabal reporting live from Copenhagen. Moscow is thought to be preparing to annex vast new swathes of Ukrainian territory in the coming days. The United States is warning Russian forces are potentially moving to cement control of much of the country's east. The Kremlin claims the 2 regions of Lugansk and Donetsk, pro-Russian separatists in the 2 regions, declared independence in 2014, but Moscow has so far stopped short of formally incorporating them, as it did with the Crimean Peninsula the same year. The US ambassador to Europe's Organization for Security and Cooperation, Michael Carpenter, has cited highly credible intelligence behind the warning. The US also believes Russia might stage fraudulent referendums in the coming weeks on whether Donetsk, Lugansk or Kherson should become a part of Russia.
Now we believe that the Kremlin may be trying to organize a Kherson People's Republic in the Kherson Oblast of southern Ukraine. Such sham referenda, fabricated votes, will not be considered legitimate, nor will any attempts to annex additional Ukrainian territory.
Kherson was the first major city captured by Russian forces. The British Defence Ministry says Russia is preparing to install a puppet local government. Well, our correspondent William Denzelo reports now from Riga in Latvia.
According to Michael Carpenter, he says this is right out of the Kremlin's playbook. Of course, you rightly cite that example of the annexation of Crimea as well. Carpenter also suggesting that Russia was seeking to create puppets and proxies in other parts of Ukraine as well. Of course, the message from Kiev is that they will not give an inch of territory that they see as theirs to Russia going forward. So very much signs of Kiev not backing down despite these warnings from this US credible intelligence, as Michael Carpenter suggests. This, of course, comes as Sergei Lavrov in recent days has issued a number of demands. He says he wants to see what he claims to be, he wants to see denazification. He wants to see strategic geographical locations discussed. He wants to see issues regarding the Russian language addressed as well. Of course, Sergei Lavrov also calling on the West to stop arming Ukrainian forces as well. So what we're seeing is an incredibly protracted conflict, perhaps in the making, considering the fact that there are warnings that Russia's position in the east of the country especially is becoming increasingly entrenched, and Kiev, well, their message is that they will continue fighting and show very few signs of backing down to what they very much perceive as Russian aggression in their sovereign country.
Voters across the UK will head to the polls to choose their local decision makers on Thursday. Elections will be held for all London borough councils, a number of councils and local authorities in Wales and Scotland. Northern Ireland voters will be taking to their polling stations to elect members to the Northern Ireland Assembly. And while these elections will decide local level leaders, They're being seen, of course, as a chance for voters to express their feelings at Boris Johnson's government amid a cost of living crisis, the ongoing Partygate row, and the government's response to the war in Ukraine. One new poll is predicting disaster for the Conservative Party. It was conducted on 1,700 participants in the 201 councils that will be going to the polls this week, and it suggests that Labour could win nearly 3,500 seats this time, a gain of more than 800 for the opposition. It also suggests a fall of 548 for the Conservatives and the loss of control of flagship councils. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has given an interview today to Good Morning Britain, in which he acknowledged that the government can't offset rising living costs completely.
Because I accept that those contributions from the taxpayer, because that's what it is, taxpayers' money, isn't going to be enough immediately to help cover everybody's costs. Of course, that isn't going to work in
so you
enough
acknowledge
in the
you
short
are not
term.
doing everything you can.
There is more that we can do.
Yes.
But the crucial thing is to make sure we deal with the prices over the medium. And although you're quite right to point out that there is an inflationary risk and it's very severe, it could get worse. And that knocks onto interest rates, and that knocks onto the cost of borrowing for everybody. And I'm sorry to say this, but we have to be prudent in our approach.
More now on this story from our correspondent Chris Jones.
550 seats is what the Conservative Party stands to lose if the results from this survey transpire into reality. That would be the worst loss for a political party in the UK for around about 3 decades, and would be disastrous for Boris Johnson and his Conservative Party. Around about 16 local councils they could lose to the Labour Party, the opposition Labour Party, so that would swing the balance of power in their favour. And of course, you've mentioned the reason for this is a seeming distrust from the public towards the Conservative Party and Boris Johnson's leadership in particular. We've seen of late that Boris Johnson received that fixed penalty notice where he was fined for attending a gathering during COVID-19 lockdown, when restrictions were in place to make sure those kinds of gatherings didn't happen. Now, he could still receive another fine. The investigation into that Partygate scandal is still ongoing. So we could see more distrust from the public on that if that happens. Despite that, Boris Johnson has apologised. He said that he's paid the fine, and that has swayed some of the Conservative Party in his favour. For example, Kwasi Kwarteng, he's the business secretary in the UK. He says that no matter the outcome of these local elections, Boris Johnson will absolutely stay on as the leader of the Conservative Party. So these elections and the outcome of these elections could really be pivotal for Boris Johnson's leadership and the direction of government going forward.
Next to a farming town in southern Brazil, which is known as Brazil's Little Ukraine. It's been welcoming Ukrainian refugees with music and dance.
Ukrainians and Brazilians of Ukrainian descent living in the Brazil's Prudentopolis, commonly known as Little Ukraine, held a special ceremony to welcome recently arrived Ukrainian refugees. The ceremony included a lot of merrymaking, like folk groups performing traditional dances, as various groups of Ukraine refugees arrived in Brazil. A lot of different church groups of Prudentopolis got together and decided to do their bit to help the refugees.
We are local churches who are receiving people. The churches are being responsible for the people, paying for their rent, water, electricity, and everything that is necessary. So our Baptist church and many other churches are receiving and taking care for a year all of those Ukrainian families. Some churches are receiving 10 families. Our church received 8 families. Other churches, 1 or 2 families.
The UN Refugee Agency reported that more than 5.5 million people have fled Ukraine since the war began on February 24th. Some of them have found home in Fudontopolis, located in the southern state of Parana. According to historians, Ukrainian migrants began arriving in Fudontopolis in 1896, and since then it has retained close ties with Ukraine, and over 3/4 of the town's 52,000 people speak Ukrainian. It's the official second language. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The United States hosted the Met Gala last night, with the event returning to its traditional first Monday in May slot. The theme was gilded glamour, and hundreds of A-listers obliged. We will leave you with some of those images from the event. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to WION World is One. I'm Ollie Barrett.
This is right, Arab.